Hello, this is Stephanie, your quilting bestie. Today we're going to talk about inset circles. So you can take the Drunkard's Path block and sew 4 of them together and make a circle. And that's a great way to make an inset circle. Okay, there's some versatility in doing it that way, that's for sure. But what if you don't want perimeter seams? What if you just want the circle inside of some fabric? That is our inset circle block. Circle, background, inset. Very versatile. There's a lot of ways you can do the inset circle. You can get all kinds of things on the inside. It's almost as if you could fussy cut your inside fabric against your background. You could piece things together and put it against your background. It can get wild, it can get fun, and you've still got your inset presentation. Okay? So now that we know just how delightfully versatile the inset block is, let's make one. The inset circle block is comprised of 2 parts, that which will be your circle and your background fabric. Whatever size you make your circle, you're going to make the hole in your background fabric 1 inch smaller. So for example, if I were going to make a 9-inch diameter circle, the hole that I make in my background fabric is going to be 8 inches in diameter. This will allow for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. So there are lots of ways to make circles. We have rulers. These are great if you have specific sizes that you want to make, and these rulers come in a specific size. We have dies. Some dies come as separate circles. Some dies come as just the 1 die on a platter and you use it. But if you've got a specific size that you need, maybe it's in your best interest to just make a template. Now, I like to use a see-through ruler. This particular ruler has the holes down the center every 1/2 inch or so, and that way I can size up or size down as needed. So to use the ruler, you're going to want to have something at your pivot point. I'm going to use a pin here. And I'm also going to use the holes that are down the center. Now I'm going to make an 8-inch circle and a 9-inch circle. So I've made the notation on my ruler at the 8.5 inch mark, at the 4-inch mark and the 4.5 inch mark. When I make a full radius, I'll be able to get that size. Put the pen in or the pencil in, draw, and there's that one. And if I want to make the next size up, do the same thing. And there you go. So if you're doing this for just maybe 1 or 2 circles, maybe you're drawing it directly on the fabric, no problem. But I'm making several circles, so I actually made a template. The size I need and the other size that I need on a separate template. And then that way I can use it to cut my fabric. You'll find a link in the description for both the template plastic and the rulers. So now that we have our templates cut and we've selected our fabrics, it's time to prepare to cut our fabrics using our templates. We have what we're going to use as our background fabric. I've decided to make a 12-inch block, so I've cut this fabric, my background, 12.5 inches. Okay. So what I like to do is fold it into quarters, and I've taken it over to the iron to press those folds. It just makes it a lot easier to lay this template onto the fabric accurately. Once I've got it in place, I'll pin it with some binder clips here. Clip and clip. And just a few more to make it secure. Okay. And then If I'm feeling adventurous, I can use my rotary cutter and go around. If I don't want to feel that adventurous, I can just use a pair of scissors and just clip around my radius. I'll do the same thing with my circle fabric. Okay, doesn't matter how you fold it into fours, whether you fold it as a square, it'll fit. Okay, or if you fold it diagonally, okay, it'll fit. So either way is fine, whichever way works for you. So once we've cut the two pieces, the inset circle and the background, you're going to have your circle, and you're going to have your background. Okay? And we'll match up these intersection points as well as some points in the middle, get it all pinned up and sewed. So I've got my two pieces here, my background fabric and my circle. And the idea is to join these two pieces together. Much like anything else, it starts with right sides together. Okay? Right sides together. It looks a little funky, but we'll work our way around the circle and we'll actually get this circle inside of that opening. Okay? Now you may have noticed, well, I've got some pins here. Those are to help us match up where we should be meeting as we're getting around the circle. Okay? I'm not a big pinner generally, but I recognize when I need to pin. This would be one of those times because I'm going to try and ease this circle evenly in this opening. So I've matched up some pins and some intermediate locations as well as where it was pressed and folded to get those original creases. Okay, so we're going to start with right sides together. And we can start by matching up our creases here. Okay, I'm going to get a pin. Okay, now this is where it gets fun. Going to do the same thing on this side. Right sides together. Pin. Now I'm going to do it on all four corners or all four pressed edges. Bring those right sides together. It's a little, like I said, it's a little funky, but it makes sense once it gets under the needle. Pin. And this one. Okay. We'll do the same with these intermediate points. And we'll also work the fullness in the spaces between the intermediate points. Okay, so there's an example. We'll do that all the way around the circle. And when we're done, we'll have this. Okay. You can see we've got it pinned all the way around the edges. It looks a little floppy, but once we put the 1/4 inch seam allowance on it, it'll actually lay very flat and very nice. All right, so we are at the machine and we're ready to sew. Let's start with some of our settings. We're going to set our stitch length to a shorter than usual stitch since we're going around a curve. Oftentimes, good stitch length is around 2.5, but for sewing around a curve, I like to use like a 2. Now I've got an older machine, so it does it in stitches per inch. So in my case, I'm going from my usual 12 stitches to inch to 15 stitches per inch. Okay, next I've got on a 1/4 inch piecing foot, which also happens to be in my case my all-purpose foot. And now that I've got my stitch length set, my foot on. Let's get under the needle. I'm going to align my edge with my presser foot, come down, get my needle in there, get a couple of start stitches, and then I ease my way very gently around the perimeter of the circle. Try to keep my edges aligned and keep the fullness towards the back of the needle, towards the back side of the presser foot. Now you could see me easing some of that fullness. Sometimes it's a little extra full, but I'm working my way around and just slowly bringing the edges together, carefully bringing the edges together, and keeping that fullness towards the back of the needle. So I'm coming towards the end, and I'm going to meet up with where I was in the beginning. I don't have to worry about back stitching or anything like that because I'm just going to sew over my starting stitches anyway. Again, trying to keep those edges together. Coming into the home stretch. Stitch over a couple of stitches and cut it loose.